ranking Buffalo doesn't want to brag about.
It now ranks as one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Good evening. When it comes to crime, the Queen City does not shine too brightly.
Buffalo now joins the ranks with some of the most violent urban areas in the United States, according to Forbes. So what does the City of Good Neighbors have to say about this?
These niggas still trying to amount to us. Puffin' this sour Dutch while I'm counting up. I was down on my luck, now I'm clouded up. Jumping out of trucks and Giuseppe kicks, that's 1,000 plus. My city wild as fuck, bodies piling up. Now we dealing with Donald Trump, they gotta count on us. I'm in the kitchen whipping powder up to get my mama up out of the slums and my medallion bust. Pound for pound, the best around is us. I never argue or get loud with a nigga I can't reach out and touch. Got the plug number and I dialed it up. About a month later I showed up to my town serving them out to Trump.
Benny the Butcher, a man that as of recent has been stirring up a lot of noise and garnering a lot of praise for his body of work and consistency, even though he would catch a lot of people's attention with his involvement in Griselda. He has managed to carve out a lane for himself and have his own success. I listened to the people on my westsidegunn video saying that I needed to do Benny next, and a lot of people liked me having my boy Niall on the video. And for this video on Benny, I wanted my fellow YouTuber Def Goldblum to collab with me.
Thanks for having me, Dre. If you guys love underground hip hop, then make sure to go check out my channel and hit me up on Twitter at Def Goldblum or Instagram at Def_Goldblum if you want to connect at all and talk about some music.
Definitely go check out his channel and videos on Westsidegunn, Griselda, etc. But before I get more into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this, because you guys could be doing a million other things, but instead you're here with me and I appreciate that. If you guys like the content, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, follow my Instagram too, that would be greatly appreciated. Comment down below your favorite Benny song, favorite verse, lyric, etc. Without further ado, I give you Benny the Butcher from Buffalo with love. Benny the Butcher was born Jeremy Penick in Buffalo, New York in November of 1984. He's the second oldest and has 7 other siblings. Benny is also the younger cousin of Westsidegunn and Conway the Machine, in which those two are brothers. I'm not going to get too much into their family tree and stuff like that because it's rather confusing, but anyways, for those who watched the Westsidegunn video, they would know that Buffalo, like a lot of cities, isn't all the way bad and does have its nice parts, because some people kind of like got on me for that in the last video when that was not my intention. Buffalo has its nice parts, but the city does have its bad parts and a lengthy past when it comes to things like the mob and violence throughout the city. This is the backdrop that Benny would grow up in, and this is what he had to say about it. Man, growing up in East Buffalo was like, as a kid, it was everything. Kids, you really don't realize what's going on around you. As I got into my adolescence, I realized what kind of neighborhood I was in, with drug dealers outside in front of my house. My mom is telling me be in before the street lights, and a whole bunch of other stuff going on around me. So you know what I'm saying? You had to learn decision making real quick early. When you grow up in the hood like mine, they respect you in 2 ways. We all wanted to be accepted, and they accept you in 2 ways. You either shoot people or you get money. You know what I'm saying? Being a city boy, we would get money, so we was accepted. Benny would also spend some time in Atlanta too, but growing up, Benny's mom encouraged him to rap when he was very young. We're talking about at the age of like 6 or 7. She would ask him what rap he wrote and put him on the spot. Benny's dad was actually a DJ back in the day, and he used to play all the music. Benny heard dang near every rap song that came out at the time. Benny's first memory of rap music is riding around in his dad's car, sitting in the back seat, blasting old school music. His dad's car, Wink Wink, would be inspiration for a song that Benny would later do in his career, but you know, we're getting too far ahead of ourselves. But yeah, but the artist that B.E.N.N.Y was listening to was like EPMD and Rakim and things of that nature. B.E.N.N.Y would also watch movies like Beat Street and Crush Groove as a kid. The moment where B.E.N.N.Y says he really realized that he wanted to be a rapper was after seeing Another Bad Creation and Heavy D and the Boys. He was seeing kids his age at the time on TV doing what he wanted to do. The first time B.E.N.N.Y would perform in front of a live audience was in a talent show in school in the 7th grade. B.E.N.N.Y and his friend performed the song Can't Nobody Hold Me Down by Mace and Diddy. They ended up losing, and B.E.N.N.Y doesn't know how they lost. Speaking of school though, despite getting in trouble while in school, B.E.N.N.Y actually got good grades and has classified himself as a nerd. He used to really do good in English and literature classes, labeling himself a good essay writer because he knows how to write, and obviously we know this would carry on to his rap career. It was actually around this time when B.E.N.N.Y was 14 that he would start dabbling with selling drugs. B.E.N.N.Y has said that he's from a legendary block in Buffalo named Montana Avenue, and they were a famous drug block, and unfortunately B.E.N.N.Y would become a product of his environment. I got into it being from a neighborhood that was blanketed with it. The whole history of the neighborhood was about drug dealing. It was a drug dealing block, and I was born on that block. When my mom birthed me, I was brought home from the hospital on that block. So the hustlers outside was doing what they was doing. As I grew up, those dudes was my friends. Those dudes turned into my brothers. So I did what they did. It's just the path I chose at the time. I got 3 felonies. I've been back and forth in and out of prison. I got the other side of it too, not just the glory of it. So that came with a lot of regret. That came with a lot of would've, should've, could've. And just basically around the time Westsidegunn had this opportunity for me, there were other opportunities on the streets. One day, while at school, a kid who knew B.E.N.N.Y was nice at rapping said that his uncle had a record label, and after school, this kid took B.E.N.N.Y to his uncle, and B.E.N.N.Y wowed his uncle, and B.E.N.N.Y was around 15 at this time. He rapped over the Mobb Deep beat for their song Quiet Storm, and B.E.N.N.Y ended up sparking a relationship with this record label, and the uncle and B.E.N.N.Y's words ended up honing his rap and hustling careers. B.E.N.N.Y was kicked out of the house at 17, and he credits this to being the best thing to happen to him and his mom relationship wise, because she was addicted to drugs, and B.E.N.N.Y had drugs in the house and was having that lifestyle around her. At 18, B.E.N.N.Y got busted and was sentenced to 2 years. B.E.N.N.Y turned 18 in 2002 since he was born in 1984. B.E.N.N.Y was charged with attempt to distribute, and he lied about his name, I think. If B.E.N.N.Y only did 2 years, then he would have gotten out sometime in 2004. You would think that someone would turn a new leaf after being incarcerated and using that time to reflect and hoping to start a new life when they got out, but for B.E.N.N.Y, in his words, he felt like a made man after being locked up in the feds, came home and didn't tell on anybody. B.E.N.N.Y would violate his parole and end up back being locked up again for about a year. But before we continue, B.E.N.N.Y would release the first TANA Talk in 2004. The name of TANA Talk was Westsidegunn's idea, and the phrase TANA Talk is in reference to the infamous drug dealer Tony Montana from the movie Scarface, one of my favorite movies of all time. If you have not seen Scarface, slap yourself right now. But anyways, TANA Talk was released while B.E.N.N.Y was on house arrest and was his first time messing around with studio equipment. Now this mixtape is extremely hard to find. I was looking all over the internet and throughout Reddit, and people are in the same boat, but then I found a link to a YouTube video and it has the alleged full album. This is a fake though, as B.E.N.N.Y has confirmed on Twitter. But I will say, trying to find like the CD, like the original CD copy of TANA Talk 1 is dang near impossible. B.E.N.N.Y also describes TANA Talk 1 as when he took over the block. Also, I'm pretty sure that I saw somewhere that B.E.N.N.Y stands for Best Ever in New York, but don't quote me on that. But I do know that he has a mixtape entitled that though. But despite being in and out of the system, B.E.N.N.Y was still dropping and appearing on projects. In 2005, B.E.N.N.Y would appear on westsidegunn's Flyest in Charge Volume 1 mixtape, and he sounds drastically different than what he does now. When you hear him, you can definitely hear the improvements, and Gunn is also on this mixtape, and you can hear the potential in him as well. I think it should also be noted that B.E.N.N.Y was with Street Entertainment around this time, alongside Westsidegunn, Gunn, Cutter, etc. And B.E.N.N.Y, Westside, Conway, and Gunn were also in a crew called the Forerunners in their high school days. But it would also be in 2005 when B.E.N.N.Y dropped TANA Talk 2. This is when B.E.N.N.Y says he took over the city. But sometime, I would say in 2005 or 2006, is when B.E.N.N.Y would violate his parole and would end up being back locked up. And I'm pretty sure during this sentence is when B.E.N.N.Y's older brother, Gunn, passed away, because he passed away in 2006. B.E.N.N.Y was in Ashland, Kentucky when Gunn died and had about 150 days left to serve, and ended up missing his brother's funeral. Gunn was my real blood big brother. He was overprotective. He got me in a lot of things early. If he was going outside to play football or whatever he'd be going, he'd always have to take me. He was very genuine, and he protected those that he cared for at all costs. His spirit looks over my music a lot. I think about him every day. That's my real brother. He talks through me in my music. Some of those moments I've rapped about, I might not have said it, but he was right there with me. The death of his older brother would really affect B.E.N.N.Y because his brother always looked out for him. You can hear B.E.N.N.Y talk about the death of his brother on the song Langfield off of TANA Talk 3, and the album cover is actually a painting of Gunn. There's no doubt that if he was alive today, he would be a part of what Griselda is today. B.E.N.N.Y would get out once again and continue on with dropping music. If you look it up, you'll see that he has an abundance of projects from 2006 to 2009, so he was really in grind mode, and also was going under the name 2 Chainz Benny Main. Sometime around 2009 or 2010 is when B.E.N.N.Y got locked up again and did another 2 years. He just got home from being locked up, and this is when his cousin Conway was shot. You see, Conway and his other cousin, Westside, were staying in Atlanta while B.E.N.N.Y was still in Buffalo doing his thing. Conway took a trip back to Buffalo and was shot multiple times, which resulted in wounds that would leave him paralyzed on the right side of his face. If you want to know more about this event, I highly suggest that you listen to the song The Cow off of Westsidegunn's mixtape, Hitler Wears Hermes 4. According to Westsidegunn, if Conway never got shot, then there wouldn't be no Westsidegunn as a rapper. Westside felt the urge to rap in order to motivate his brother to not give up on his own career. B.E.N.N.Y didn't even go to the hospital to see Conway because he didn't want to see his cousin like that. And another thing that B.E.N.N.Y was dealing with after getting home from being locked up was that he had polyps on his vocal cords. He couldn't raise his voice, and in B.E.N.N.Y's words, there was only a couple things they could do to fix it. On a side note, this is something that Young Jeezy had to deal with in his career, along with people like Adele and Bjork, to name a few. Throat polyps are small fleshy growths which form on the vocal cords, usually as a result of overuse, and obviously as a musician you tend to use your vocal cords a lot. B.E.N.N.Y would go see a doctor and they told him he needed to get the polyps surgically removed, but they didn't do surgery for everybody because his voice could come out different. They suggested no smoking, no juice, no talking, no eating spicy foods, and the list goes on, and B.E.N.N.Y basically broke all of those rules. It was DJ Shay that ended up helping out B.E.N.N.Y after doing research online, and Shay found this spray for B.E.N.N.Y's throat that B.E.N.N.Y used for 2 months, and it ended up working and his voice came back. Before this, B.E.N.N.Y was going through it because he thought that his career might be over because of how his voice sounded if it never changed to how it normally was. Another thing to note is that B.E.N.N.Y has asthma, and we would see him have some health scares due to this fairly recently, but when his voice got better, B.E.N.N.Y was still dropping music, and during 2014 and 2015 is when Conway and Westside started to build up buzz in the underground scene. By this point, Griselda Records was formed, all while B.E.N.N.Y was still with DJ Shay and Buff City. In 2015, we would see B.E.N.N.Y release the mixtape Black Soprano Family. The Black Soprano Family was actually a thought that came to B.E.N.N.Y back in 2011 while he was locked up in the Elmira Correctional Facility in Elmira, New York. When he got released in 2012, he was hard at work to bring his vision into fruition. B.E.N.N.Y wanted to try and reinvent himself, and Black Soprano Family is his own collective separate from things like Buff City, Griselda, and Street Entertainment. In the Vlad TV interview, B.E.N.N.Y spoke about how the Buffalo Police Department has painted the Black Soprano Family as a gang. Check that interview out if you want to know more about BSF. In 2016, B.E.N.N.Y would drop the mixtapes One on a One and My First Brick. Also in 2016 is when Westsidegunn would release his debut studio album Fly God, and this is when B.E.N.N.Y started to fully realize what his cousins were up to and what they had. B.E.N.N.Y started to notice how their merch, vinyls, and all that stuff was selling out in a matter of minutes. He really saw the buzz Westside and Conway was getting as they started to build their fan base. 2017 would be the year Westsidegunn and Conway was signed to Shady Records, and this is when B.E.N.N.Y fully got out of the streets according to him. B.E.N.N.Y has also talked about not being signed to Shady alongside his cousins on Vlad TV, and he cuts it down to him not being on the level of Westside and Conway at the time. 2017 will also be the year B.E.N.N.Y would drop his first project under Griselda, and it will be Butcher on steroids. This is definitely some of B.E.N.N.Y's best work, and fans and even B.E.N.N.Y hold this project in high regard when it comes to his discography, and for good reason. At this point in the video, you might be wondering how the name Benny the Butcher came about. The name Benny comes from the movie Carlito's Way from the character Benny Blanco. B.E.N.N.Y then added in the Butcher part because his name was 2 Chainz Benny before. It's always been Benny, but it played off of a couple of other things because he was Benny Montana for a second. People accused 2 Chainz of stealing B.E.N.N.Y's name, but B.E.N.N.Y has said that he was never mad about it and that he did what he did with it. This will complete my part of the video, and now I'm going to turn it over to Def for his part on the second half of B.E.N.N.Y's career.
2017 marked a new era for B.E.N.N.Y, as he finally joined his cousins Westsidegunn and Conway and released his first official project under Griselda Records. B.E.N.N.Y teamed up with DJ Green Lantern to give us Butcher on steroids. This project continued B.E.N.N.Y's trajectory as one of the most talented MCs in the game. It's here that it feels like he really found his formula. Aside from Griselda veterans Conway and El Camino, this is also the project where B.E.N.N.Y fully embraces his mafioso influences, referencing The Sopranos with his cover art, track names, and lyrical homages. In 2018, he teamed up with 38 Special to give us a collab EP called Stabbed and Shot. This project channels the energy of Tony Montana from Scarface, with the dope cover by Manuel Sepp Conception, and with B.E.N.N.Y and Special unlocking an elite confidence, with each of them bringing their own flavor while showcasing their incredible chemistry. In that same year, he dropped A Friend of Ours, further cementing himself within that mafia lore, with the opening track sampling Donnie Brasco and then chanting We Got Mob Ties, and the cover art showing The Sopranos with that classic Griselda eyes blocked out. On November 23, 2018, B.E.N.N.Y released his official debut album, TANA Talk 3. In my opinion, this is his best project, and one of the best albums of that decade. B.E.N.N.Y's rapping ability is on another level here. From a technical level, his pen game is flawless, penning songs using some of the tightest patterns and rhyme schemes that I've ever heard. This is also one of his most personal projects of his career too, with the title TANA being named after Montana Ave, the street he lived on in Buffalo, and the cover being a painting of his brother Machine Gun Black. In true Griselda fashion, the opening track pays tribute to his hometown of Buffalo, and is named after his mother Babs. He uses the same rhyme scheme for pretty much this whole song, going on for a minute and a half, rhyming Cold City with Bo Diddley, with Nose Drippy, with Cold Blicky. It's just a masterclass in rhyming. Rubber Bands and Weight finds B.E.N.N.Y reminiscing on his early days growing up on Montana Ave. He raps about his experience on the streets selling drugs, as well as the death of his older brother. This falls on one of the grimiest Alchemist beats ever, This album was produced entirely by the Alchemist and Derringer, making it a classic with two of the main Griselda sound architects building this world for Benny to show off on. 97 Hove exemplifies everything great about this project, with one beat from Derringer leading into a switch to an Alchemist beat, all for Benny to spit his shit comparing himself to one of the greatest peaks that any MC has ever had, in Jay-Z from 1997. In 2019, Benny was actually approached to be on the XXL Freshman cover, but it was Jay-Z who advised him not to take it. Benny said that he always wanted to be on the cover, but Jay let him know that when it's his time, there's not going to be any vote, and he's not going to have to share it with anybody. I feel like this is important to what Griselda means to hip-hop. There were numerous points where they could have succumbed to the pressures of the mainstream, but they always stayed themselves, and let the culture come to them. At this point, Benny has entered his prime, and is one of the best rappers in the world, and his next project, The Plugs I Met, showcases that, acting as a sort of victory lap for him. With another cover from Scarface, Benny continues his run of excellence. On the soulful DJ Shay produced Crowns for Kings, he trades verses with one of the best lyricists of all time, Black Thought, solidifying Benny as one of the best MCs in the world. Benny, just like his Griselda comrades, blesses his fans with a bombardment of releases, guaranteed to give us 2 to 3 projects every year. In the same year as The Plugs I Met, he teamed up with Smoke DZA and the legendary Pete Rock for the EP called Statue of Limitations. Benny is one of the most respected rappers around, getting cosigns from his peers, as well as hip-hop legends of all ages. Benny helps put on the people in his crew too. Along with Griselda, he's also the leader of the Black Soprano family, a group featuring Rick Hyde, Heem, Loveboat Luciano, Jonesy, Flex Baby, Young World, and DJ Shay. In 2020, the group teamed up with DJ Drama for their very own Gangsta Grillz mixtape called The Respected Sopranos. This project meant a lot to Benny, because he was finally at a spot where his skills got him influence on the biggest stage, and he was able to set up his crew for success. Benny says, "As the best rapper alive, this is a dream come true to me, a dream that started in my head in 2011, when I was in prison. The seeds were planted when I was at Elmira Correctional Facility, and when I was released in 2012, I've spent every day since working to bring this vision to fruition." Benny continued by saying, "It's been one of my dreams to do a label deal, and put my homies in a position to win. I want to expose the talent from my area, and I want to expose the world to the talent that they may not have heard unless I bring it to you." In 2017, Benny and the Black Soprano family signed a label deal with Entertainment One Music as a collective. A lot of rappers in the underground seem to shy away from label deals, but Benny clearly has bigger plans. In August of 2019, Benny signed a management deal with Roc Nation, adding to the long list of rap royalty to rep the Rock. Whenever an underground rapper who's very authentic signs to a major label, there's always a fear that the quality of their music will take a back seat. Well, for Benny, that was far from the truth. The Rock helped Benny get access to higher quality sound, without sacrificing any of the rawness that makes him great. In 2020, Benny released Burden of Proof, produced entirely by Hit Boy, who was on an incredible run as the hottest mainstream producer around, producing an EP for Big Sean and 3 albums for Nas, one of which winning him a Grammy. Hit Boy's production has Benny making a palpable step into a more accessible direction, feeling glossier and a bit more showy than usual. But Benny feels right at home over these types of beats. Hit Boy has a Grammy award-winning pedigree, and if Benny keeps making albums of this quality, then he'll get there too. This project features Freddie Gibbs, Big Sean, Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, Dom Kennedy, as well as westsidegunn and Conway, exemplifying the blending that this album has between the glossier and more refined luxury rap with that classic Griselda sound that we all know and love. This album feels like Benny going on a victory lap, relishing his place in the game and the luxuries that he's earned after years of grinding. That victory lap continued into 2021, when he released his follow-up to the project The Plugs I Met. This one was entirely produced by Harry Fraud, and the duo has incredible chemistry. To me, this might even be the best rapper-producer pairing that Benny's ever been a part of. Benny has talked about the process of working with Harry on this project, saying, "Hit Boy's process on Burden of Proof was a little similar to Harry's, but there's little small differences. It might be from how many blunts we smoke, or what we do to start recording, to what we might do after. With Harry, the vibe was always right. We get in there, we order a bunch of food, we smoke, we talk, we're laughing, and people even playing 2K. In the middle of all that, I'm just sitting back and crafting words. I know the prestigious things that Harry's worked on, and I'm just trying to live up to that." The Plugs I Met 2 continues that cinematic feel that's so prevalent throughout Benny's career, keeping the Scarface inspirations that we've come to expect. His next project is a very underrated EP called Pyrex Picasso. The tape was entirely produced by Rare Skrilla and Chop La Rock. The project feels very 80s to me, with these big colorful beats and sampled hooks sounding straight out of 80s power ballads. This project wasn't released until 2021, but it was actually recorded in its entirety in one full day back in April of 2019. And that brings us to his latest album, TANA Talk 4. Continuing the TANA Talk series that pretty much sums up his entire career, this is another one of his best. The cover is a painting of B.E.N.N.Y with his brother Gunn, along with their cousin Westside Gunn. The album opens with Johnny P's Caddy, featuring J. Cole. One thing about B.E.N.N.Y is that he always brings out the best in his collaborators. Just being on the same track as B.E.N.N.Y has the best MCs in the game sharpening their pen, because they know that they have to bring their best to keep up with him. A large focus of B.E.N.N.Y.'s on this album was talking about where he is now in the rap game compared to when he started. It's lyrical themes like this that help B.E.N.N.Y maintain his authenticity while still evolving as an artist. If you listen to this album after his other ones, you can tell that he's older here, more confident, more mature, and all around a more complete artist. 10 More Commandments is a spiritual successor to Biggie's 10 Crack Commandments and features an outro by P. Diddy, yet another legendary cosign for B.E.N.N.Y from a rap icon. B.E.N.N.Y is one of the only modern MCs in the game that can touch a classic from the likes of Big and have old heads be okay with it, because B.E.N.N.Y's cut from the same ilk as the greats. Every fan of Griselda, or really hip-hop at all these days, has been involved in the debate of who's better, Conway or B.E.N.N.Y. Well, no matter where you fall on that spectrum, you have to respect that we have these two MCs in the same crew at the same time. The duo addresses that on Tyson vs. Ali, comparing themselves to Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali, the Celtics and the Lakers, and more, which hopefully puts a halt on some of these debates for a while, and calls people to just sit back and take in the greatness of each of them while they're still here. B.E.N.N.Y recently has started beefing with a longtime Griselda affiliate in Freddie Gibbs. Over the years they have appeared on each other's songs a few times, so there never seemed to be any bad blood between them. But in a recent interview with Spotify, B.E.N.N.Y was asked about working with Freddie, to which he replied, "Working with Freddie came and went, to be honest with you. It's all love." Now that statement doesn't seem to be too bad, but Gibbs took offense to it, taking to Instagram to say, "Came and went, lol? I know some other shit that came and went too. Just keep my name out your mouth, man. When y'all start talking to people who are doing interviews and shit, just say, 'Next question, man. I don't want to talk about that, man. Just say next motherfucking question. For real.'" Gibbs then said his marketing plan for his whole album is to beef with Freddie Gibbs. That's cute. And then he suggested that B.E.N.N.Y should be grateful to Freddie because he used to open up for Gibbs on tour. B.E.N.N.Y didn't make any official statements in retaliation, so it looks like this might have been just some Twitter fingers drama. But with Freddie's next album slated to come out in June, we'll see if this beef continues to grow. It's only been a few months since B.E.N.N.Y released TANA Talk 4, but if history is any indication, then B.E.N.N.Y is probably gearing up to drop something again very soon. His popularity has been growing exponentially, and with his skill set continuing to improve with every year, the sky's the limit for Benny the Butcher.
There's a couple of other things that I wanted to say before closing out this video, and one is that, as some of us know, B.E.N.N.Y was shot in Houston in 2020. He was trying to get into Walmart and forgot his mask and went back to his car, and some short dude was behind him, and we know what happened next. He's since recovered from this incident. There's also the thing where B.E.N.N.Y was facing allegations of grand theft after recently being accused of stealing a pair of $10,000 earrings from a woman in a hotel. And then there was this thing about how recently his UK shows were canceled because of quote-unquote old FBI reports and a new felony charge B.E.N.N.Y just caught that we will find out about, I guess, in this upcoming documentary. 2019 would be the year that Griselda as a group would release their debut album, What Was Machine Gun Do, which is in reference to B.E.N.N.Y's late brother. We also have to bring up B.E.N.N.Y's Def Jam deal that he signed in 2021. This was huge because now B.E.N.N.Y was rolling with the legendary Def Jam record label. I know people were looking sideways at B.E.N.N.Y because Def Jam is sort of in like a rebuilding phase and are trying to recapture the essence that they had back in the day with their glory years. B.E.N.N.Y has commented on this multiple times and has said that people have been telling him what to do and don't let Def Jam do this or this to you, but he says, "Do you think that I worked this hard to get somewhere and let somebody tell him that you can't do it like this no more? You gotta do it like this." This happens to a lot of independent underground artists where people are wary of them signing to a label for multiple reasons, and with B.E.N.N.Y, a lot of people felt like he was doing so good without a label. What's interesting about this is that Snoop Dogg actually helped him with this deal. B.E.N.N.Y told Snoop Def Jam lowballed him, and Snoop responded, "Do they not know who you is?" B.E.N.N.Y then told Snoop who he was talking to, and Snoop skipped past him and went to the boss. Snoop said that B.E.N.N.Y was going to tell the boss what he wants, and he's going to give him what he wants, and he's going to sign. The rest is history. In conclusion, this will complete the story of Benny the Butcher. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and me and Def really enjoyed putting this together for you guys. And definitely want to get a shout out to everybody who has helped Benny in his career, whether it's Derringer, Alchemist, DJ Shay, 38 Special, Westside Gunn, Conway, all that. So definitely a big shout out to all of them for helping, and his older brother. Definitely want to give a big shout out to all of them. Run up them likes and comments, all that for a Conway video, because I will drop that sometime this summer. The more support that I get on this video, the sooner that will come. So keep that in mind for sure. All in all, let me know what you guys thought of the video in the comment section below. I love you guys with all my heart. Peace.